Hello again everyone, I'm Jim. Welcome to another video. As people who have watched my videos in the past may know, I am someone who uses a fair amount of Sophos kit. We use this for work, so we supply this to a lot of our customers. So it's no surprise that once again I have another Sophos unit in front of me. The big difference, however, this time, this is a Sophos XG 310 revision 2. And the reason I have this one in front of me is to test how a hardware XG takes to having the software image loaded upon it. The reason for this is over the next year or so I can foresee that there are going to be a large quantity of these devices actually appearing on eBay secondhand with no license, as Sophos have been upgrading their clients for free, basically, free hardware, which means that the old devices, up to sort of a couple of years are sort of old, are being pulled out and replaced with new, which isn't a problem. But it does bring an opportunity to us lovely people who like to run some fun stuff in our home labs, and people who want a hardware firewall device, to get our hands on this hardware at a reasonable cost. Now this device has come off of eBay, and this one I have purchased does have a license on it, so it's not a licenseless box like a lot of them will be, but doesn't matter because the way the system works is the same no matter what. So it will either work with a software license or it will not. So that is what I'm going to attempt to find out. It's also a sort of good excuse to make sure that the methods still work to install Sophos on these devices, whether it be an old SG or a new XG. We will see. Anyway, so without further ado, let's get on with the show. Now, as you can see in front of me, I have two different firewalls. The top one being my own Sophos XG 310. This is revision 1 hardware, and underneath it is the newer XG 310 revision 2. And as you can see from this, there are some slight changes between the two of them. Obviously the most noticeable one when you're dealing with them is the older hardware is significantly smaller in size, which is always worth bearing in mind when you are looking at these devices, because if you do not have a full depth rack, you may struggle to fit the later hardware in. Now, other than that, obviously one of the big noticeable differences is the LCD has changed ends, but the ports are similar but not quite the same. On the Rev 1 device, we have all the standard gigabit Ethernet ports and a pair of SFP ports on it. On the revision 2 hardware, we gain a pair of SFP Plus ports, which is these two at the end here, and obviously the expansion slot changes end. Internally, these are still both Core i3s in the 310 model, they're Core i5s in the 330 model. Both, I believe these are dual core hyper-threaded, and both have 12 gig of RAM with an SSD fitted internally. But that is about it. Obviously, the SG 310 Rev, I'm sure this is a Rev 1, is exactly the same hardware-wise as the XG 310 Rev 1, and vice versa. The SG 310 and the XG 310 Rev 2 are the same hardware. They just choose to put a slightly different badge on the front, and I think from memory the LCD screens may be a slightly different color, but that's about it. Other than that, exactly sort of the same style product, just newer revisions, obviously, as goes the case. I believe the top one uses possibly Sandy Bridge based hardware, maybe a bit later, maybe Ivy Bridge. Bottom one is Skylake based, so obviously a tiny bit more efficient, but on the flip side, obviously considerably bigger. And one of the other changes is the Rev 1 hardware has a nice colour logo, whereas it's now a nice indented logo on the older stuff, or the newer stuff I should say. Now, as I said, I haven't turned this on. This has come straight out of the box, and all I've done is plugged it in and connect it up to a screen just to see what's going on with it. So this may go bang. I do not know yet. We shall find out. Well, it turns on. That's a good sign. And do we get anything? We do. We have a Core i3 6100 at 3.7 with 12 gig of RAM. And let's see if we get anything boot. I think I just saw it starting version 17, 17.5.9. So that's not too bad. And asking for a password. So it boots. Always a good sign. Well, that's good. The next step for this is to give it a clean load, and let's see how we get on from there. Now we have here the latest software image from Sophos for the XG devices. This is version 18.04, maintenance release 4 for version 18. And we're going to burn it to pen using Rufus as per my previous instructions. To get this image, you want to make sure you are getting the software image, not the hardware image. And you get this from the Sophos licensing portal. Now, when you sign up to get the Sophos XG home license, which is what I would recommend you use for obviously your home labs, do not use it in production. You can download the latest ISO file under network protection, and from within network protection you want to go to download installers, and here you have a varied selection. So you have the firewall OS for the XG series that I will be putting back on this appliance afterwards. But you can also see here you have the virtual installers for VMware, Hyper-V, KVM and Zen. But the one you want is this one down here, Firewall OS ISO for Intel hardware. Click download, fill in the relevant little bits of information they ask you for, and download that. And once you have downloaded that file, you can then stick it on a USB pen, which we will use Rufus for. Now we want to go in and select that file. Make sure that your partition scheme is MBR and you are targeting BIOS or UEFI. And it doesn't matter about the rest of this, it should pick it up by default. And when you click start, you need to make sure that you select write in DD image mode. And we will click OK on that. And we will click OK again, and we will finally click OK. And that will start writing the image onto USB pen. This should take about 30 seconds or so. It's only a small image. But if you do not write it in DD mode, you will find that the pen will not boot. This is one of the wonderful things that we have found out about this, but you need to make sure of that. The other thing, if you have an appliance that has still got the hardware image on it, you may have to boot into a usable pen, so a bootable USB pen, whether that's a live USB pen running Linux or a Windows pen, and clean off any data that is on the disk, because that way it will not detect the previous installation and come up with an error. But we will see if we can replicate that actually with this one while we're here, and then I'll show you if it does come up. I'll show you how to clear it. If it doesn't, unfortunately I can't do anything about that, but we'll see how that behaves. Nearly there now. And let's see, that should be finishing any second. And we're done. There we go. So let me get that pen out and we'll carry on. Right, the pen is booted, so to speak. No, ignore that. Right, the pen is created. It is now in the front of the unit, and actually, as this still has the hardware image on it, I can go through and use the system menu, I believe, to tell the system to reboot. I've got to remember where it is now. It should be tucked in. Is it under firmware? Let's have a look. Show firmware, factory reset, shutdown, reboot. This is literally me being lazy and not wanting to reach behind the unit. So we will see what we get and what comes up on the screen. Press down to continue, confirm, and you should now hopefully have a system that boots up off of its USB pen. Oh, fan spin up. Couple of beeps. We get the Space Invaders sound. Now that is a good noise, because that means that it has come up with the error that we wanted it to come up with, and I will be able to show you this in a second. Apologies for the interruption. This is me, as I'm editing this footage, finding out that the video and audio quality in the next sort of bit of the video is all over the place. Unfortunately, the machine I was recording on decided that it didn't want to record smoothly, and the volume went really low. So I've tried my best to correct it. Please persevere with it, and we'll do better in future. Thank you again. Now, just to run through that again, I've just restarted the unit and we'll let it boot up, as this was a question that was asked, I believe, in the comments of the previous video I did on these, where people were hitting problems with devices they purchased. This is the reason why. So you can start the firmware update and you get a nice pretty Space Invaders noise, and obviously what you're getting is the fact that the software installation has picked up that there is still a hardware installation present, and you have to basically wipe it. So that is what we are going to do, and to do that I am going to use a Windows 10 installation pen, which is what I have available to me at the moment. I'm going to change the USB pen over in the front of the unit. I've plugged the keyboard in, so we will reboot the unit, let it fire up into a Windows 10 system, and we will go from there. And we're up and running now in Windows 10, and it is Shift F10 gives us a command prompt, and I can just bring up the disk part, and from there I can just type in list disk, and that shows us that the internal hard disk is 180 gig. Select disk 0 and clean. And that is the internal disk wiped. And all that remains to be done now is to swap the USB pen back over. Like so. And then we can exit and restart. And this will now boot into the installation for the version 18 installer. Obviously this will take some time, as it will be now installing on a blank disk rather than an already partitioned disk. or not. Now, what you may find with the Revision 2 series appliances is when you obviously do get the lovely Space Invaders noise, and you've tried to wipe clean the disk and start again, unfortunately what you may have to do is change the hard disk. Unfortunately on this one I'm going to be able to go no further because I need that hard disk to stay intact because this device still has a license on it, and I'm not going to break the device. But as soon as I get another Rev 2 in, I will test it again just to confirm, but this has been tested in the past to say you change the hard disk out, put the pen in, and away you go. So unfortunately, this video is going to be a bit shorter than I planned, but what I will do is swap back to my Rev 1 device because I need to get that loaded back again, and I will make sure that my pen works and it loads as per normal. Well, frustratingly, after much hunting around, I can't find any way around it, and unfortunately this device I can't sacrifice the hard disk at the moment. What I will do is endeavour to get another Rev 2 device to test this on at a later date. But while I've got this, I just might as well show you quickly around so that you people are aware that this is nothing more than a heavily custom PC, as you would have seen from the video from internally. But this is the BIOS, and as you can see, we have got the standard settings that you will get in a BIOS. Interestingly, however, there is no security device on these devices, which has been brought up with Sophos before. They are working to improve actual physical security on the devices, I believe. But there's not really a lot you can do within the BIOS on these. It's just a standard basic setup, nothing particularly of interest. Let's have a look. What's an info report? No. CSM. Nothing in there. Really in there. Let's look at the hardware monitor. Basic information. Super I/O. Gives them some serial port config. ACPI is off. CPU configuration. We can see. It's a Core i3-6100 at 3.7. Hyper-threading is turned on. All processor cores are active. Virtual tech is active. Speed step is on, and that's about it. There's not really much you can do in the BIOS on these. You can see there that we have got 12 gig of RAM, which is made up of an 8 gig and a 4 gig stick. DDR4. There is the Intel SSD, which you saw earlier. But that is about it. One of the big differences, I have just burned the hardware installer onto a USB pen and put that in the front of the device ready, because whereas you may have noticed the software installer's prompt for even just you pressing a Y to continue, the hardware installers do not. It's worth being aware of that if you are dealing with Sophos hardware devices. If you put a recovery pen in the front of a device, it will factory reset the device on reboot. And I'll just show you that quickly. I haven't made any changes actually, so just in case anything anywhere, we will discard and reset, and the unit will reboot itself now. Again, we will see it fire up. And what it will do, because this is a blank unit, it will pick up that fact. You can hear the fans sort of jumping around a bit. The Rev 2 devices do seem to be a bit jumpier on their fans. There you go. Obviously you can see the firmware versions for all the different versions of hardware, and I haven't pressed anything and away it goes. Obviously it's going to now format and partition the hard disk back to factory defaults. I'm going to let this run through. You won't have to suffer this, and then what we'll do is leave it, and what I will do is just to demonstrate that the version 18 MR4 installer will work on an older SG appliance that I believe has had its hard disk swapped out already. I will fire mine up and get it ready to go, because it needs wiping, to be honest. It's about that time, and it's I need to reset up the appliance, and in a later video I will be setting up a HA pair of software appliances. And there we go, there's the music to say it's done and ready to go. And if obviously I press Y on that, and take the pen out obviously, you should get a fully factory reset Sophos XG 310. Going on through, select the right version. You may be picking this up, you may not, but there is some fan noise, which is this unit actually revving the fans up and down. Yeah, as I said previously, the Rev 2s do seem to be a lot more fan happy. Obviously, this being the first boot, it's going to have to wait to think about a few things. And there we go. That is now booted, ready, and if I go to the default Sophos IP for these devices, I will get a nice pretty wizard. So I'm going to swap over now to the other unit, and we'll just run through that and make sure everything is A-OK. Now, unfortunately, you will have to excuse me because I don't have a VGA capture device, and one of the big differences as well around the back of these units is the Rev 2 device is HDMI out, whereas the older Rev 1 devices are VGA out. So just in case you do need a screen on these, that is something else just to be aware of. Like I say, we've got the software USB pen ready, we have the unit ready and plugged in. So what I'm going to do is plug the USB pen in to the front of the unit, flick the switch on the back of the unit. You get a lot more noise on startup with the Rev 1 units, but they quieten themselves down. And there we go, and away it will go. And we now get the firmware installer pop up. And this will factory reset and erase the data. Now, I do not think this device has had its hard disk swapped. What I believe from a little bit more investigation is that the XG devices use different hard disk firmware from the SG devices. That's what allows them to pick up, and that's why this works on a SG device quite happily, but it does appear that the XGs cause a bit of problems. Again, please update me in the comments if you are trying this yourself and can obviously swap the hard disk out on your unit. Come on, I pressed Y. Are you not working? It's, okay. Obviously my screen is hiding things out the way. Fourth gen Core i3 in the Rev 1 units. There we go. Caught that. Right, let's try that again. Y, return. And we will just let that run. And there we go. We get the pretty musical tones. Oh, so pretty. And we will press Y, take the pen out, and press return, and the unit will then restart itself. And exactly the same boot procedure, but obviously this is the software version. Booting version 18. First boot configuration. Again, you don't see this on the hardware version because it assumes that if you're running hardware, oh, come on, focus camera, well done, that it will already have a configuration specific to that. And there we go. We can see a bit more of a detailed statistic on the devices, and back to password. And that will get us back to the standard Sophos welcome page if we type it into a web browser, which I'm going to go and do now. Right, we are back on my machine. I have connected two network cables into this device. One goes to my internet connections, the other is directly connected to this machine, and we've gone up to the default Sophos IP address, and when we go advanced we will then head on in and we will start the Sophos XG firewall installation wizard. Now I need to run through this, but and basically if you click to begin you will be prompted to create a new admin password for your device. We'll sort mine out quickly. You can install the latest firmware, but we are already on it. I accept on the end user license. Some of the options you do get on this screen obviously are restore backup and connect as HA spare. Now this restoring backup is exactly what it says. Connecting as a HA spare we'll go into in another video, because you can in version 18 they have introduced what they call their quick HA ability, which still isn't as quick as the old SGs, but it is better. It allows you to very quickly set up a HA pair, and you can do this with a home license as well. You can create a HA home licensed setup. You don't gain all the facilities, but you, if you are running a large enough network that you do want to play with high availability, and you do have two Sophos firewalls, they do not need to actually match in terms of their hardware. Because you are running the software license. I'm running a HA pair with an SG310 and an SG330, which are similar. The only thing that does need to match is the amount of interfaces. You can't pair a 310 with a 115, for example, but you could pair a 135 and a 125. You could pair an old SG106 with, sorry, SG105 with an SG106. You can, as long as the interfaces match, you can pair the devices, but we'll go into that another day. We'll obviously go continue on this. You can give your firewall a nice funky name. Firewall. I'll do for the time being. And then the final thing you will have to do is you will have to put in your serial number. When you put in your serial number on a home license on the bigger firewalls, generally the first thing it will do is reboot itself, because the home license, as I've said previously, is limited to 2 cores and 6 gig of RAM. That will obviously throttle the actual instance down to being a 2-core 6 gig instance, but to be fair, that is perfectly fine for most home and home lab situations. If you need more than that, then you're doing something a bit different. But we'll go from there. I will leave this video here because basically the next is just the setup wizard. Thank you for watching. Unfortunately, this was one of those videos where I had limited scope to actually achieve what I was attempting to achieve, because unfortunately the appliance that I'm using I need, and I need it intact. So in the future, if I do get hold of a Rev 2 appliance again, I will probably do a part 2 to this video, and we'll attempt to see what we can do there. So hopefully this will be useful, and also again just to reiterate how to install the XG image on an old SG piece of hardware. It's quite useful for home use and home lab use, obviously not for business use, but it does make running a home firewall a lot easier if you actually have a physical firewall device you can use already. There we go. Thank you for watching again. Please comment, like, subscribe, have a look and find me on various forms of social media. I'm streaming on Twitch, a bit on YouTube. Just if people want to ask questions, I have a plethora of hardware available to me, and I'm more than happy to talk people through when they're having issues setting stuff up. If I can replicate or create a similar style setup here to help them understand or to work through problems, that's what I'm aiming to try and get underway. Again, we can work through things if it helps together, and go from there. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.